Epstein. Here it is.
Donald Trump's Epstein nightmare is about to return in full force as both Democratic and Republican lawmakers are announcing a quote explosive press conference about
2
Epstein
days.
that will put further pressure on Trump and the Republican congressional majority
2
to release the
days.
Epstein files. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, folks, here is Democratic Congressman Khanna announcing this, again, explosive press conference to be held later this week.
Of transparency, let's talk about the dispute related to the files of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Congress left town early without voting on your bipartisan bill, which would basically call for the release of all of the files related to Jeffrey Epstein. Do you think when Congress is back, the bill will go to the floor and it will pass?
I'm very confident it will. I spoke to Congressman Massie. You had us both on a few weeks ago. We will have the petition live on September 2nd. We have all 212 Democrats committed to signing it. He has 12 Republicans. Only 6 of them have to sign it. What will be explosive is the September 3rd press conference that both of us are having with 10 Epstein victims, many who have never spoken out before. They're going to be on the steps of the Capitol. They will be telling their story, and they will be saying clearly to the American public that they want the release of the Epstein files for full closure on this matter.
That's going to be a total nightmare for Trump and the Republican Party because the Epstein issue, even though it was relatively low salience, was penetrative and it endured. It stuck to Trump. Right now, we haven't heard much about it in recent weeks, but that's because there's just been little by way of update. But this issue was giving him headaches. We covered it extensively over the past several months. And what Republican Speaker Mike Johnson and Trump were hoping is that the early recess of Congress would effectively put this to bed. But according to Khanna, and we're about to play another clip of him being interviewed by Fox News of all places, is like, no, this hasn't gone anywhere. They tried to delay this, but we're patient. We're biding our time. Not only will we push forth this legislation that Mike Johnson cannot stop, we will also make sure that there's a public spectacle in the form of a public press conference involving Epstein's own victims putting pressure on Trump. Here's another clip.
12 Democrats and 12 Republicans.
You know what? Even if they don't get the criminal charges, this gives them power for the civil lawsuits. Get them, sue every single one of those rich men who did that to them when they were little. Sue them all. Give them half their shit. Give them half whatever they own.
Including Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert. Look, this is not about Donald Trump, and it's not partisan. This is about justice for the victims of rich and powerful men who abused underage girls. And 10 of these victims are speaking out for the first time at a press conference that Massie and I are organizing on the steps of the Capitol on September 3rd. In this country, people want transparency. They want accountability. I'm confident we're going to get the 218 votes for the discharge petition.
Talk about that news conference because you're kind of touting.
I'll stop right there. We'll go back to the discharge. We'll play the part about the press conference in just a second. But
How do you block
again, the discharge
people?
petition, the way it works is, so unfortunately, in our Congress,
I'm
even
already
when
on a list,
a plurality
so,
or
to
even
be
a majority
honest.
of people want to bring forth legislation, the congressional leaders actually have enormous control over that. So the Republican Speaker of the House and
I'm
the House
definitely
of
on some
Representatives
lists. I'm
and the
always tweeting
the
at
Senate
the
lead-
fucking White House and DHS and FBI's and shit. Like, they definitely know who the fuck
leader
I
in
am.
the
They have my fingerprints. They have my DNA. To be honest with you, when you're a felon in Arizona, you have to give them your fingerprints and DNA and shit. I was fucking struck. Like, I sat down there like, swab this. I was like, for what? Like, you have to swab this. I was like, for what? Like, we're gonna send your DNA and we're gonna have it, tested against all the crimes. I was like, all right, cool. So when you're a convicted felon, they take your DNA and they test it against any DNA they have on pending open cases. So if you have more pending open cases where they found your DNA, they're gonna charge you with that shit. Isn't that a fucking racket? Anyway, so yeah, I didn't have any, obviously. So I was fine. But now they have my DNA forever. No, I think they get rid of it after 7 years, so we're good. I'm good.
Senate. Now, what a discharge petition does is effectively allows people to bypass that. Like, hey, listen, if you have the numbers of support for this legislation, you can effectively bypass the bottleneck that is the leadership that doesn't want you to be able to bring this legislation forth. That's what a discharge petition is. Now, because Democrats are in the minority, they would need Republican support for it. Apparently, they only need 6 Republican lawmakers. They have 12 who have at least declared they are willing to sign up. So it looks increasingly likely
so
that
they have 6.
this is going to totally
They have
screw
6.
Mike Johnson and that he won't be able to effectively prevent this. If those 6 Republicans co-sign for this discharge petition for the public release of the Epstein files, Johnson and Trump are screwed.
Petition.
And talk about that news conference, because you're kind of touting it, that it's going to be, if not explosive, there's going to be some news made.
Well, these victims haven't spoken for decades. When Epstein got that lenient plea deal, no one talked to the victims or their lawyers. No one talked to the victims or their lawyers when Maxwell was sentenced. No one has ever heard, what do they want? And my belief is when the American people actually hear the victims for the first time, they are going to sympathize, their hearts are going to be broken, and all the victims are saying is for closure. We need the Epstein files released.
Not even for closure, for them to get on with what they need to do to get back at these men who did this, bro. There are so many men involved with this that should face the justice.
That there are a lot of
That's why that's what a lot of people are not saying out loud. Like, men, plural version of man. There are men who are involved with this that need to reap what they sowed.
They're rich, powerful men, politicians, business leaders who have committed abuse and who have not been held accountable. That's what we're going to hear on September 3rd, and people are going to be outraged, and I don't see how after that the House can't vote for the release of these files.
Again, that's Trump's worst friggin' nightmare. So let's take a look at a Politico article about this. Khanna and Massie to hold press conference with Epstein victims. And Congress is back in session this week. Representatives Khanna and Thomas Massie are once again ready to push House Speaker Mike Johnson and the White House for transparency in the Jeffrey Epstein case. The next step, a Wednesday press conference with 10 of Epstein's victims. And again, they quote what Khanna said during the interview he had. Outcry over the White House's handling of the Epstein case engulfed the administration early in the summer after the FBI and DOJ announced that they uncovered no evidence of a so-called client list and were effectively closing any investigation, angering the MAGA allies who were counting on more information about the disgraced financier and his connections to society's upper crust. Some of them, from Laura Loomer to Liz Wheeler, called for Attorney General Pam Bondi to lose her job. Trump didn't help matters, aggravating supporters last month by calling the Epstein case a Democratic hoax and disavowing the, quote, past supporters who he said, quote, bought into this bullshit hook, line, and sinker. In search of answers, Khanna and Massie introduced a discharge petition that would force Bondi to release a broad range of DOJ files on Epstein. The pair is determined to press on even as the Justice Department transmits certain files over to the House Oversight Committee pursuant to an August subpoena. Khanna told Welker that he is confident that the bill has the numbers to reach the finish line in the House floor, which again we discussed. Here's a Fox News article to that effect. Khanna and Thomas Massie are reigniting their push for the Justice Department to release the files. Let's see if there's any new information here. The White House's handling of the Epstein case sparked outcry earlier this summer. The move infuriated many of Trump's MAGA allies and supporters. I'm confident we're going to get the 218 votes for the discharge petition. We've got about 212 Democrats and 12 Republicans. He emphasized, quote, in this country, people want transparency. They want accountability. Yeah, so folks, I'm telling you, this is not good. If Khanna, and by the way, Thomas Massie has made it, I guess, part of his identity to be a giant pain in the ass for Donald Trump. Now, he is from Kentucky, and he and Rand Paul are almost two birds of a feather because they're both from Kentucky. Rand Paul's in the Senate, Massie is in the House, and they're both like libertarian leaning Republicans. And they, as far as Republicans are concerned, are probably the two most consistently principled Republican lawmakers, which is very rare to find, really among any lawmakers, but particularly in the Republican Party, by far the least principled and least consistent of the two political parties. And because of Donald Trump repeatedly and increasingly attacking Thomas Massie's leaning into it, smiling, trolling, mocking Trump, and almost like leaning into this idea that he will be even more politically successful, Massie that is, if he leans into this idea of being a principled libertarian foil to Trump, that anytime Trump bucks up in a way that violates Massie's libertarian principles, he's going to be on Trump, doing everything in his power to needle and mock and try to politically screw him over. I mean, most Republicans recognize this is a political vulnerability for Trump, even if he's not directly implicated in crimes related to Jeffrey Epstein. But this is still bad because, of course, Epstein and Trump were friends for years. We also know some other things, too. Number one, Trump was told in May by the Justice Department that his name was all over the Epstein files. And then, of course, after that was when the FBI and the DOJ said, okay, we're done talking about the Epstein files. We're done investigating. So that was after they knew that Trump was in the Epstein files, and after they told Trump he was in the Epstein files, then came that order. We also know that the FBI, as they were reviewing the Epstein files, were flagging Trump's name for reference specifically. We need to, okay, shit, Trump's mentioned here. Then we learned that the FBI redacted Trump's name in the Epstein files, redacting it, trying to conceal it. Trump mishandled the Epstein debacle.
It's
Multiple polls
fucking
say that a majority of
happening.
Americans believe that Trump himself is either directly implicated in Epstein's crimes or that he had knowledge of Epstein's crimes before Epstein was ever investigated or prosecuted in the first place. So that's terrible. That is terrible PR for Donald Trump, and this is only going to reignite the flame, and everyone, all of us, just on the objective merits of the case, but also the fact that it's politically inconvenient for Trump, need to make sure that we keep talking about it and drawing attention to it as this becomes, back into the spotlight as Khanna and Massie prepare for their September 3rd press conference.
That's too